Today I want to talk to you about something that I'm sure most or many of you have heard of, but I about guarantee that 90% of you aren't super familiar with unless you've talked to me in the last year or two or been through the process yourself, and that's short sales. Short sales, I want to go at what they are, how they affect buyers, how they affect sellers. So what a short sale is when the indebtedness on the property, the mortgage, is higher than the current market value. So for instance, for the sake of easy math, say that there's a property worth $100,000, but they've got a $110,000 mortgage. So there's a gap there. And let's just say that they get an offer on the house for $100,000. By the time they pay taxes and fees and closing costs and everything else, they're going to be about $92,000. So $100,000 house is going to net $92,000, and in this example they owe $110,000, so that's about an $18,000 gap. So they're trying to go to the lender, the agent and the seller are trying to go to the lender and convince the lender to accept short of full payoff. It's not a short process. In fact, it's a long, ugly process, but that's where the term short comes from in a short sale. So when does it happen? It happens when a seller is upside down and they want to get out of the house. When they're upside down on the property, they got four options. One is just stay there and say, tough it out, you can't leave, you just have to stay. Number two is they got to bring money to closing. In that situation, they got to cough up 18 grand. Sometimes 18's on the short side. Number three is they can just do the short sale, negotiate the process. Or number four is they just give up, and that's called the F word, which is foreclosure in the real estate business. So this is when it happens. Here's the process. So the only time a bank is going to consider taking a short sale on the property is if they feel it's in their best interest, which is kind of obvious, the same as the rest of us. So when it's in their best interest is when they feel it's inevitable that they're going to end up taking that property back, which means the seller is behind in payments. Very difficult, if not impossible, to negotiate a short sale if the seller is current on their payments, because the bank's first reaction is going to be, let's just stick with what we're doing, it seems to be working out fine. So pluses and minuses for the seller. One is, if you're in that situation and you don't want to just stay, maybe you financially can't stay, you don't financially have the money to bring 18 grand to closing, and you really want to, for lack of better words, do the right thing and avoid the F word, then you're probably going to be in this scenario of the short sale. So given the alternative of the foreclosure, a short sale is less impactful on your credit. It's a little bit easier to recover from. It's quicker to close that chapter and start the next one, certainly, than the foreclosure process is. The only way the lender is going to do that is if the owner meets certain requirements. For instance, they want to make sure the owner isn't sitting on $50,000 in the bank and just wants to keep it back because there's a vacation in Hawaii. So they're going to want to see bank statements, pay stubs, tax returns, some financial documentation showing that the seller is not in a position to bring that money to closing. For a buyer, there's pluses and minuses there too. So one is, if you're a buyer and you have this house as a short sale and you have the house across the street that's a typical sale, and you put an offer in on the short sale, well, in order to go through that process, for the bank negotiations, the bank's going to want to appraise the property, make sure they're not selling a $200,000 house for $100,000. Then you're looking at 3 to 5 months. So if a seller can buy one house and it's going to take 3 to 5 months, or the other house they're going to have an answer in 24 hours, the only way they're going to mess around with a short sale is if they feel like they're getting a really good deal and they're financially incentivized. Now, because it takes 3 to 5 months, what I see happen a lot is the first buyer comes in, writes the offer, and they wait for a month, 2 months, and they give up and they walk. Then buyer number two comes in, and they've already been 2 months down the road, so they wait for a month or 2 months, and sometimes they get it, sometimes they give up. And then buyer three comes in, and they only have to wait 30 days. So I see that happen a lot. If you can get the deal to work out as a buyer, usually you can get a little bit better deal on it because the homes sell for depressed prices, because such a tiny little niche of buyers that want to even mess with them. The disadvantage is tough not to get emotionally attached to the property after you've been waiting for 3 to 5 months, and then they could come back and just say no, they're not approved. So those are the pluses and minuses. It can be good for a seller given one of the other three of the other four alternatives. It can be good for a buyer if you've got time to wait, you're not emotionally attached, and they won't take contingency on the sale of a property, so you have to kind of have your money and your timing right. So short sales can be good. They're a little bit arduous, but it's a good product in the right situation. So if you have more questions, or you think you might know somebody that would be a good candidate for a short sale, let me know. I've done a lot of them. Experience is tremendously important and valuable in these situations. Never too busy for your referrals. Thanks.